42 grand on a Corolla?
Dude, WX is so much better. All you have to do is tune it, upgrade the suspension, fix the brakes, change the tires, and downpipe. Dude, the Elantra's cheaper. Why didn't you just buy that?
Ew. These plastics, bro. Oh my god.
Hey, Peter, who can afford it?
Why does it burn when I pee?
There are better options.
Yeah, this wouldn't work for Uber, and for that reason, I'm out.
It's not special. It's just another shit.
For similar money, there are cars superior to the GR Corolla. Things that are a little quicker, more practical, more fun. But when you stop dissecting its shortcomings and just drive it, the little Toyota makes a strong argument. Granted, I am going to critique the Corolla quite a bit because that's my job, and I've also driven it for 7,000 miles, so I have quite a bit to contribute. I bought this one because it felt like the last opportunity I would have to buy a new car with a manual transmission, all-wheel drive, relatively big power, while wearing a badge I trust.
And because of its bare-bones nature, it's also priced below some of its key competitors. That is, before the dealers puke on your pride. Thankfully, I'm hearing that prices are going down. Getting it at MSRP is still far from the norm, but possible. The average seems to have moved to a couple grand over, but many outliers remain depending on your region.
To me, its wide body stance, large grille, compact footprint, and sharp lights remind me of a rally car. To some others, the GR looks like a kid growling at you in the parking lot. And if you're buying a car because you want people to take you seriously,
this is probably the worst way to spend 40 grand.
But I am happy that it does come with quite a bit of features, like LED projector headlamps with these swoopy DRLs, though I should note at night there's a weird shadow and I think it's caused by how the bumper is shaped. You're also going to get standard LED fog lights. Now if you're okay with a mid-40s price tag on a Corolla, you can get the Circuit Edition, which will get you a bigger bulge on the hood with vents, a forged carbon fiber roof, more glossy black accents, inside and out,
a large spoiler, something that I'd put on every GR Corolla.
And for 2024, you will also have BBS wheels that are slightly different from the NKs that you'll find here.
One detail that adds peace of mind for me are the 18-inch rims wrapped in thicker tires than most of its competitors.
That little bit of extra sidewall is not going to give this car a cushy ride by any means, but it gives you a little bit of extra protection from potholes. And speaking of function, each one will also come with proximity entry. One complaint from a lot of people here in the United States is that the Corolla is too small. And while this does carry some notable trade-offs,
it was never supposed to be a primary family hauler. Your money doesn't pay for luxury either, or a spicy interior, or an armrest.
If you've sat in a base Corolla, the GR in its core grade will feel similar. The materials primarily consist of dark plastics, and then some glossy black plastics for safe measure. You have a little bit of soft touch here on the dashboard, though Toyota has buttered the toast of enthusiasts with a simple and sporty GR steering wheel,
aluminum pedals, a leather-wrapped mechanical handbrake,
a full digital dashboard, and some mildly sporty seats with contrast white stitching. And while I get they weren't really trying to impress us, a little bit more zest would be welcome here. And you get some of that with the Circuit Edition,
which for 2024 trades its red accents for blue ones and increases production to 1,600 units. In addition to the core, you get all optional packages, blue contrast stitching, a little more soft touch materials, and for 2024 it looks like they've added parking sensors too,
partial suede seats, and even more glossy black plastic. So it does offer a little bit more spice, but neither one of these has a real special cabin. But when you think about it, you go back to the old WRX STIs, the Lancer Evolution, even the Focus RS, those also felt more like rental cars turned race car. For some folks, the GR is just going to lean a little bit too hard into its econobox roots.
It also notoriously ditched the center armrest in the name of elbow mobility.
Now there is actually an aftermarket center console that I think you can buy for around $130. I haven't done that because it doesn't bother me that much. Other things have. So unfortunately, my car has developed some rattles, especially within the doors, and I've actually taken it upon myself to remove the panels, install some Kilomat, and that drastically reduced the issue. Still, this is something that I don't think any new car owners will want to do. Though I think it does come with the features that most people would like, including automatic climate control, available heated seats and heated steering wheel, standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and a cool digital dashboard that has a fair amount of customizability. And I think it looks pretty cool too. It's very straightforward, as is the infotainment system itself. This comes with Toyota's latest setup. It's an 8-inch screen. It has an acceptable response time, a good resolution, and basically anyone can hop in and use it with no problems. Though the user setup can be frustrating, standard you will have a 6-speaker sound system.
Optional is an 8-speaker JBL setup.
It doesn't have a subwoofer. There's nothing really special about it. Honestly, most bass stereo systems will match its performance.
That package also comes with a wireless charger,
Which if your phone, like mine, has too big of a camera bump, it's pretty much useless. Practicality is also not a strong point. Again, no center console, and there's no pockets on the back of the seats. Not really a whole lot to speak of in terms of cubbies either, though the door pockets have a respectable size.
I wouldn't label the seats as prized highway companions, but I find them to be comfortable enough.
Now there is some bolstering here. It's not going to hold you in too well at the track, though they are usable, and a wide variety of body types should be fine. There's no lumbar adjustment, though I've found the back support to be sufficient. I've done multiple 4 and 5 hour journeys in this thing with minimal achiness. Now one area of compromise for the GR Corolla is the back seat. And here at 6'3", I can sit behind myself in a comfortable yet not excessive position. Your knees will be wrapped around here, but this works fine for average adults.
If you plan on regularly carpooling or hauling kids, I'd suggest a Civic Type R or even the Elantra N or Golf R.
The doors just don't open very wide, and bulky car seats could be an issue. But once you are back here, I mean, headroom is good, as is thigh support, so for an enthusiast-oriented vehicle, I'm not mad. The trunk size was what caught me more off guard. This is just really short for a hatchback, but like the back seat, I have found it to be usable. You have some nicely sized pockets on either end, a little bit of storage underneath. Unfortunately, there's no spare tire, just a fix-a-flat kit. And when you fold the seats down, it is very flat, and it was actually a big help when I was moving out of my old apartment. Just the fact that it is a hatchback does give it quite the advantage, though it's going to get absolutely obliterated in family friendliness by the Civic Type R. But this is a vehicle made for those who are willing to compromise some in order to achieve an experience. On the road, the GR Corolla feels like a passion project built by a skilled engineer in his garage, though it was actually manufactured at Toyota's Motomachi plant, which has built some of the brand's best stuff. Compared to the regular Corolla hatchback, it obviously has a wider track, but it also has more chassis bracing, many more welds, and more aero kits to improve high-speed stability. And for 2024, they actually added more of that into the front bumper to further improve stability. So this engine was developed specifically for high-performance usage with the GR Yaris. It's a 1.6-liter inline 3-cylinder, and here it makes 300 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. If you won the lottery or did despicable things and got your hands on a Marizo, that makes 295 pound-feet of torque. And that also gets more aggressive gearing within the standard 6-speed manual transmission. Power is sent to all 4 wheels via Toyota's Trick GR4 all-wheel drive system. So the cool parts about it, if you get the Performance Pack or Circuit Edition, you'll get Torsen limited slip differentials in the front and the rear. In the back, you're going to have a clutch pack that splits power front and rear. It can do up to 70% of torque to the rear wheels. Now that does not mean it is locked in at 70-30.
It implies that 70% max could go to the rear. This is a front biased car and in some scenarios will disconnect the rear axle, though I never noticed that, and having the ability to adjust what the system prioritizes is neat.
I've driven this through snowstorms. It does incredibly well. I've driven it on the track and did a little bit of autocross with it once, and traction was never an issue. In fact, it was able to rotate a little bit, though it takes a specific driving style in order to get it to do that. It also makes this thing, I think, the quickest car that you can theoretically buy for $40,000. When the conditions are good, I've gotten 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. It is so quick when you start getting the shifts down. The clutch does a good job of not feeling too abrupt. Here at a 2,800 feet density altitude, it's still slid in at 5.2. This is a dangerously quick car, and even to the quarter mile, again, when you drive this thing right, Car and Driver has gotten it there in 13.3 seconds. But it's not just straight line speed that makes this interesting. I mean, for a little bit more money, you can get a Mustang GT, and it will wipe the floor with this thing.
It's about the delivery. Drive it normal and the 1.6 is tame. Prod at it and it transforms.
It sounds like an offbeat inline six-cylinder, and it likes to be revved to its 7,000 RPM redline. There is some turbo lag for sure, but it's not as awful as I was thinking, and if you shift fast enough, it stays in boost. Now, there are a lot of good points to the 6-speed manual transmission, but there are also some negative things. Kind of just feels like a regular compact car shifter. You still have a nice little thunk into each gear.
It's not rubbery like what you find in the Golf R.
As you pick up the revs, you'll feel the engine speed in the lever itself, but it's not as satisfying as most Honda or Mazda shifters. Nonetheless, it is geared appropriately. You're gonna have to shift a couple times before 60, but it feels quick because of that. All of these come standard with automatic rev matching. This is an easy transmission for people to learn on or break off some rust. This also does have a hill hold feature and an anti-stall, which will actually feed in some revs to keep the car from stalling. The clutch pedal itself is super easy to modulate, though a tad light for my taste, and you only really get pedal feedback when you're at a higher RPM. Now, pushing it on a nice Indiana back road, it's so much fun to just toss around here. It does have that tendency to understeer, which is a little bit unfortunate for, how hard they marketed this as almost rear bias. But if you treat it more like a front wheel drive car, entering corners and then powering out, it can be really quite the weapon. Oh man, the G-forces can be a little bit nauseating. It likes to rotate under the brakes. You can use the throttle very easily to pinpoint your location mid-corner. And while these things do hold up when you're out on the track, it's not as well suited for that use as a Civic Type R, but you can still use it there, and then no matter what time of the year, no matter where you are, you have a car that is extremely confident. The sensation of speed and your willingness to trust the car is probably the GR Corolla's biggest strong suit. Plus, you have the noises that this thing makes. The pseudo inline six sound, the very faint swooshing coming from the turbo. Throwing it into sport mode, the steering firms up. The throttle response becomes a little bit sharper. A lot of people complain about the heel-toe shifting experience because of the pedal placement, but if you have large feet, honestly, I have zero problems doing it. I never use the auto rev matching feature. The steering itself provides a little bit of feedback. It's not telling me everything about the individual crevices of the pavement, but it is making me feel confident, and it's extremely direct. Maybe not as pinpoint accurate as, a Miata or something, but pretty damn good.
The suspension is tuned perfectly for aggressive back road driving too. While well under control, there is a little bit of body roll that helps communicate what's going on to the driver, though you may want to eliminate that to make it react quicker. At least there are no adaptive dampers to worry about here. The giant brakes with two-piece front rotors will surely be expensive to replace, but they provide immense stopping power while still being easy to modulate.
The steering weight in the sport mode is perfect. It's heavy enough to have substance to it, but also light enough to keep it playful. And the weight builds up a little bit as you're throwing it through corners. Maybe doesn't feel quite as alive and engaging as the GR86, but it is keeping me highly entertained.
Your smile will quickly fade when the pavement turns sour.
The goal of this car was not to shield you and isolate you from the road. It's to communicate the road. All the small imperfections are made known, the medium-sized stuff will disturb the peace, and the big stuff leaves lasting trauma. Is it daily drivable? Well, after 7,000 miles, I'd say it is. If you're a committed enthusiast, I think you can make this work in most places. Now, I've driven this in some of the rougher parts of Indianapolis, and Gary, Indiana, if you guys have been around those places or lived in them, sorry, but also, yeah, those roads are horrible, and I don't think I would have bought this car if I lived there.
The GR punishes you over potholes and large imperfections. However, while it's stiff over the smaller stuff, it's not choppy, nor does it unsettle the car during corners.
Now, I will add that when you're driving this on the highway for long distances, you know, the undulations and brakes in that pavement is typically fine. It doesn't ride like your old friend's 2008 Mitsubishi Lancer on a $500 pack of coilovers. Maybe like a $900 set.
The noise at highway speeds could take some getting used to. The engine sits near 2,700 RPM at 65, but you won't hear that over the aggressive tires and complementary wind noise. It's bearable, but it's another compromise. At least the gas mileage easily exceeds the ratings. I average around 28 and can get 32 or so if I'm easy on it. Premium is required.
Now, when it comes to reliability, as I had mentioned, this engine has been beefed up for performance.
This engine has direct and port fuel injection to keep the intake valves clean, and it also has a more trusty vacuum-operated wastegate. Currently, complaints are limited to interior rattles like what I had, squeaky brakes when coming to a stop, something that's common in a performance application, and some unrefined powertrain noises as well. The biggest issue is that the all-wheel drive tends to overheat on the track, especially when rear-biased mode is on, and Toyota has not addressed this for 2024. I haven't run into this myself, but if you plan on seriously pushing it, you'll have to make some mild modifications.
It seems like Toyota took the proper precautions to make sure that this is a long-lasting engine, but obviously time is going to have to tell. With the GR Yaris, this has been a pretty robust engine, and people have even modified them to make stuff like 400 horsepower with not really any issues.
Driving this daily, it's pretty sensible. You have an easy view outward.
You feel more like you're sitting on top of it. It's not like a Subaru Forester or anything, but it does make it pretty approachable. I do wish maybe the dashboard was a little bit lower, but overall visibility is still pretty good out of this thing. You also have any sort of active driving aid that you could want in a manual transmission car, and it all works pretty well. This is the latest safety sense system that can get over-the-air updates. It does a great job at lane centering, and it'll have blind spot monitoring standard too. Once you get past the ride quality, it's a reasonable little car. Start opening it up, you realize it's an Econobox Frankenstein. It's not as well-rounded as basically all of its competition, and I'm not going to pretend that it's the best track companion either. That's not the point of the car. Just like the old Japanese rally cars for the street, it's about taking a boring commuter car and making it absurd, just capable at any place, any time, and making you feel confident in the process. Not necessarily just the best lap times, though by the numbers, this is competent there too. It seems like there's a fair amount of hate going on for the little Toyota, and a lot of it's centered around the dealers that are completely ruining the point of this car when they charge $5,000, $10,000 over the sticker. I paid $2,000 over, and I'm still sick over that.
I've driven the WRX, the Elantra N, and the Golf R. Each have their own appeal, and to a degree, all of them make more sense than the Toyota, but the GR remains supreme to me, even at 42 grand. I know the interior is cheap, it's not that practical for a hatchback, and the ride is punishing, but let's not act like those attributes were ever the point of a car like this. It's not just the performance that's supposed to redeem it, it's the personality. I was born 10 years too late to buy a new Lancer Evolution. The GR Corolla conjures up that soul better than any other car in the market. It adds in some convenient modern touches, hatchback practicality, and good gas mileage too. I can't imagine a car that would make me feel more confident on a back road. If you're looking for an entertaining, high-performance ride without added BS, enough practicality to be a daily, and you can live with a cheap interior and harsh ride, the GR Corolla is the real deal, and it easily earns my recommendation for you. But there's one car that does make me second guess myself. I haven't driven one, but I got to ride in one, and from everything I've heard and my experience with Hondas, the Civic Type R is probably more fun to drive. It's also more practical, and it has an interior that's nice enough to justify the price increase, though its size could make it less playful, and front-wheel drive on my type of roads could be a significant drawback. When I can, I will make a comparison between the two, and if it really has the charm to topple the Toyota, I might just trade in. For now, the GR Corolla remains my personal favorite for performance at 40 grand-ish. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then leave a like to help me do some damage on the YouTube algorithm. For more fun, detailed car content without fluff, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Check out my Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.